Throughout time, there have been many changes that have shaped our society and the way we function today. One of these changes that will be discussed in this essay is mental health, or more specifically, activism and how it affects mental health, especially among college students. However, it should be discussed also the historical context of how mental illness and mental health have been perceived over time, and how these elements affect minorities and people of different cultures as well. Knowledge about mentality has increased dramatically over time, but mental illness is still misunderstood by many of us. Our Vizina Roby Hooper highlights historical changes over centuries in their dissertation, Dynamic Social Perceptions of Mental Illness Over the Centuries, an historical case study. This is an important element in helping people better understand how mental illness could and should be treated. Quote, "The findings may also be important for advocacy groups that support the interests of the mentally ill, because the information can influence the positions that these groups adopt towards policy," unquote. It is important to understand how policies and perceptions throughout history have shaped our society today. Quote, "The criminalization of mentally ill behaviors is a consequence of the deinstitutionalization movement of the 1960s, magnified by the struggle for legitimacy in the disciplines of psychiatry and psychology," unquote. The study questions how and why perceptions of mental illness led to the deinstitutionalization of the mentally ill movement. While we will not go into the entirety of the case study and its findings, the dissertation may be worth looking into for future reference, as it may help in understanding how mental illness is identified and how we can better approach it. In regards to how activism affects mental health among college-age students, there are a variety of factors that contribute to how it is managed. Gender and cultural background are among some of these factors. Sylvia Lindinger-Sternhardt addresses this in their article, Help-Seeking Behaviors of Men for Mental Health and the Impact of Diverse Cultural Backgrounds, from the International Journal of Social Science Studies. The article explains how attitudes towards seeking help for mental illness are often attributed to masculine norms, and how these social norms affect people, especially males, of diverse cultural backgrounds. It also explains how different cultural backgrounds should be recognized by professionals such as counselors, as some cultural norms, such as Swedish masculine norms, tend to be less violent and more emotional than others. It is, of course, important to acknowledge racially charged situations in regards to students and mental health. For example, in the article Political Activism and Mental Health Among Black and Latin College Students, contributing authors Elin C. Hope, Gabriel Velez, Carly Afidani Bertrand, Maser Keels, and Miles I. Durkee discussed the experiences of Black and Latin students attending predominantly white colleges. They recognize the increased risk of negative mental health effects among these students, which include anxiety, depression, and stress due to dealing with racially hostile environments on campus. There is also greater stigma toward minority students than white students and less institutional support, as noted in the article study. Another aspect to consider in regards to mental health and help seeking among students is family history of mental illness. In a study conducted in a research article in the Journal of Mental Health, titled The Impact of Family History of Mental Illness on Mental Health Help-Seeking in University Students, authors Tanya Parrish and Carl Andreessen compared and contrasted help-seeking tendencies between students without a family history of mental illness and those with a family history of mental illness. The study was obstructed by limitations, however. For instance, quote, "All diagnoses were obtained via self-report, so it is difficult to determine the accuracy of the reported conditions," unquote. With that, the study seemed to conclude that those with a family history of mental illness were more likely to seek assistance for depression and anxiety online or using social media rather than seeking out a professional. It was also found that those with immediate family members suffering from mental illness had higher depression and anxiety scores. These were just a couple of the findings, as there were many elements to consider when conducting the study. However, mental health is something we all deal with, regardless of ethnic backgrounds, gender roles, and family history, and in the case of college-age students, activism and mental health awareness go hand in hand. Authors Jerusha O'Connor, Emily Crawford, and Megan Galliotto, in their article, The Mental Health Effects of Student Activism, Persisting Despite Psychological Costs, from the Journal of Adolescent Research, discuss the findings of a study done in finding the correlation between mental health and activism among diverse students. Quote, overall, 60% of the respondents identified activism as having a negative impact on their mental health, unquote. It was found that many students are affected negatively by activism, as it takes a toll on mental well-being in many cases. Despite the emotional costs of activism, many students find their efforts worthwhile. The following students discuss how activism has played a role in their lives and how they balance mental health and activism. The question I have for you is, how has activism played a role in your student career?
I feel like since coming to college, I feel more aware of the activism that's going on around me. I felt like in high school, I wasn't as aware of what was going on in my community, but I feel like here at Castleton, it's very in your face, but in a good way. Like, you are aware of what's going on, and you're aware of like the things that are happening with like your peers, especially the people in your major. You can really get a sense of what's going on there and things like that. Yeah, I think that's
awesome. And second question, how has activism impacted your own mental health, and was the experience worth the effort?
I don't think it's impacted me too much. I think it's maybe improved my mental health a little bit, just kind of knowing more about what's going on. I guess it did positively and negatively a little bit, because it does hurt to like hear what some activists go through whenever they are doing like protests and like other kind of activist movements. Like, it's because they just go through like whatever it takes to get their point across, whether it's, I don't even want to talk about it, but like they just go through like so much stuff. So I think that portion has negatively impacted me a little bit, just like hearing and knowing about that stuff. But at the same time, it's also very positive too, because I get to know that and kind of support them and see what they're going through, and maybe spread the word a little bit more and help them out in a positive way. I think it's a positive thing.
Okay, the first question is, how has activism played a role in your student career?
I think that activism, for me, it didn't used to be a really big part of my student career, but as I got more involved in like my education and I got higher up into education, I got more access to like teachings about activism, like this class in particular, like with media and activism. And as I've become more educated, I have grown stronger feelings about activism, and I am trying to involve it more into my life and into my education.
How has activism impacted your mental health, and was the experience worth the effort?
That one's tough. I feel like there's kind of two ways to look at that, right? Because I do think that prolonged activism requires a lot of effort, and that can burn a lot of people out. And I think especially being on campus, it was really hard to kind of manage all that on top of schoolwork, extracurriculars, and personal life, right? And I do think that a few times I have had that thought of like, was this all worth it? Just because it was so much, right? But I think the other portion of it too is I eventually just started to recognize that, like, this is gonna sound bad, but being a person that wants to be involved is in itself a difficult thing to do. And I think realizing that kind of gave me the grace to kind of take care of myself, and recognizing that if I'm not able to do something in my full capacity, then I'm not going to be able to help anyone out, right? And I have to find a way to balance that out while also taking time to myself and making sure that I'm okay. Because at the end of the day, if you're not able to fully support yourself, you're not going to be able to support others, and that's kind of the main important thing. So building up that community for me has been really important. I would say that I think it's been worth it. I've been more engaged with a lot of the people around my life. I've been more engaged with this community. I've been more engaged just in general, I've been more engaged with people around me, my community, and stuff like that. And I've seen the impact it's had, and that I find really rewarding. So I feel like I wouldn't trade those experiences for anything else, because I truly loved all the work I was able to put in and all the work I am able to put in, and to see that things are actually happening. So I'd say it's worth it.
How has activism impacted your mental health, and how was the experience worth the effort?
Activism as a whole has been both a blessing and a curse. I don't know how the exact quote goes, but it's something along the lines of, he who has more knowledge has more room for grief. It's kind of been that thing where it's like, it's great to be able to make a difference with things, but also having that knowledge and understanding those things is equally, I wouldn't say detrimental, but it can be in some circumstances, right? Especially when, let's say that the issue that you'd be shooting for is particularly lofty in its aims, and feeling like you may not have the momentum. It's hard as like a single person to feel like you can really make that much of a difference, and to that end, having the pressure of like, hey, this overwhelmingly negative thing that is going to ruin the lives and potentially hurt or kill or traumatize or any number of bad things to X amount of people, and it's on you to help fix that issue. I think that's a lot of pressure. Not that anyone's sitting there waggling their finger at me saying yes or no, but you can kind of get the idea of why that might be stressful. From my personal experience, it has been a lot to try and stay educated on things. It can be a lot. When looking at news articles every day, and it's something like, oh my God, did you know that this thing happened? Did you know that this fascist regime is doing something? Did you know that these people are trying to take the rights of X group away in the country that you live in currently? It's a lot, but I feel like it doesn't, there's a fine balance to things, and I feel like the weighing of things leans a lot more in the favor of, doing the thing instead of being complacent. Knowing that you are on the right side of history at the end of the day is what makes the difference for a lot of people, and that's what makes the difference for me.
Activism played a role in your student career?
I don't think I really done much activism until this year because of my class, but now that I think about it, I think it's played a big role, because the more stuff that happens on campus, the more I'm trying to encourage people to report, stick with friends and stuff like that, because I've had some weird stuff happen on campus, and I want everyone to be safe. And I think working on my activism project currently has made me realize that I've done a little more than I've actually really thought about. And I guess that's built my character a lot more and made me more show me what values I believe in, and makes me open up to other people and their values and be able to hear them out even if I don't agree.
Take as much time as you need to answer them. So my first question is, how has activism played a role in your student career, or your life in general, really?
I've always been very passionate about human rights and civil rights issues, but never really got involved with anything. After becoming a student here, I decided to go into journalism in order to speak out on causes and do stories and stuff to raise awareness about. And has developed into me wanting me to become a journalist / activist, to add credibility to what I'm reporting on and being able to make a difference in the world, and doing it, though, objectively, like a journalist is supposed to do, not like a lot of the media is now, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have gravitated more towards getting into different aspects, like one, taking this class, and branching out into learning how to do web design and stuff like that, which I'm taking next semester. because I want to be able to do things like creating websites and stuff for an organization I want to help create, and to hopefully I can't speak tonight, to facilitate change in the world, because I am very disheartened with the way things are going backwards from when I was younger. Civil rights issues are coming into question again that should not be, like voting rights and personal rights, especially for women. That is very discouraging and disheartening, because it's something that has always stuck with me since I was in my 20s, when I was talking with my grandmother one time. She was born in 1896, and so she was young before women had the right to vote. And she said to me when we were talking that when the law changed and she had the right to vote, and she'd been so put upon with society's bullcrap of how women should be, that, well, I don't know if I should have the right to vote, because after all, I'm only a woman. And that is one of the saddest things I have ever heard in my life, because it's like, yes, you should have the right to vote. You're a person. You're a human being. You know, you shouldn't be, society shouldn't be putting upon you, you're less than somebody else. And that just really has always irked me. And so, yeah, my career has changed and my path has changed since I started here 5 years ago, because I'm only part-time. And I definitely, this is something I plan on doing the rest of my life. I don't know how much I can do at a time, because I was in a car crash 7 years ago, and it affects me physically. Yeah, it was a severe car crash, and I sometimes have to take a day or two off, because I just can't physically or emotionally do things. But it's something I want to continue to plug away at.
Wow, well, that's understandable to have to, take time away. I think everybody can say that, but yeah, wow, that's, yeah, awesome. And I'm sorry about, the car crash and all that.
Crap happens for a reason, and it's changed my life. And I don't try and look at it as a bad thing, because I could have been one of those people who said, oh, I can't do all the things I used to do because of my injuries and stuff. And I've taken the opposite approach of that. And okay, I can't do everything or do things the way I used to, but what can I do? And what am I going to do to make myself be able to do at least some of the things I want to in my life? And so I decided at 50, how old was I? 58 years old, decided to go back to school, and
Wow.
moved from Burlington area over to Linden and went back to school.
Oh, you're definitely making the most of it, for sure.
I'm trying to.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And I'm trying to make a difference for people, because I faced some real hardships in life. I was on the verge of being homeless because I couldn't work for a long time and everything. My brother fortunately took me in for about a year and a half. And then I moved here to school and stuff. And yeah, so I faced a lot of things like that, and just the whole experience of dealing with systems and stuff like that really irritated me. And it's like, if I'm having a hard time with it, and even though I didn't have a college education, I was a, knowledgeable person and had difficulties going through all of the bullcrap that's thrown at you. It's like, what is somebody who is less literate than myself and not in the same position I am to go through. So I want to make a change like that in life. I want to build better communities. And
Wow, that's inspiring. That's awesome. I mean, to take that approach, because not a lot of people can say the same. So that's
well,
awesome.
it's like I don't know how much time I have left on this earth, because I actually did die in my car crash.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I came back, and
Wow.
it's changed me drastically too, because I
Oh my,
remember being dead.
oh my gosh. Wow.
Yeah,
That's incredible. Oh my
yeah,
gosh.
yeah.
Oh, well, I'm
So I
sorry
don't
to
mean to
get
blow
in.
your mind, and I
No,
don't mean to take up your time. Sorry.
no, no, I'm sorry to get into all that. I hope, I
Oh
hope
no,
that
no, no,
doesn't.
it's fine. I
Okay.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah.
That's an inspiring story, though. My gosh, that's amazing.
Well, I hope
Um,
so. I
yeah,
try to use it that way to
yeah.
hopefully help people, and
Well, that's
that's
awesome.
my whole purpose in life is been now to try and help other people, because I had a hard time, and I had people who showed me unbelievable kindness and generosity and caring, and I want to continue to spread that and give back some of that what I received.
That's awesome. I think you certainly are. So,
Well, I'm trying.
yeah, take comfort
I'm
in
not a
that.
perfect person and never claim to be. The only thing I'm perfect at is being imperfect.
Oh, man, that's awesome. Um, and getting into the second question, which I mean, I think you kind of already gotten into, but how has activism affected your mental health? Because that's kind of
I
what the project is.
I have issues before with my mental health, and I didn't always address them properly. Uh, Now, because since my car crash and stuff, I have learned to take care of myself better, be more aware. Uh, I make sure I eat properly. That's something that's very important for your mental health, is to have a proper diet, to get exercise as much. I have limitations to what I can do, but I still every day or most every day, make sure I get a certain amount of exercise, even if it's just walking up and down the stairs instead of taking the elevator, just something like that. And just keeping a positive outlook, because I have good days, bad days sometimes, depending. Something that I learned a long time ago is this old story that's I mean, I don't know the truth behind the story, but it supposedly goes back to somebody talking to an old Indian chief or something, or shaman or something, and saying, he says to the person that there's two wolves that live inside everyone, the good wolf and the bad wolf. And so the guy says, well, how do you know which one overtakes the other, and how you, so he says, it depends, what you do. You have to feed the good wolf. So you have to be positive. You have to do things that make your life positive. And if you do negative things, then that's the side of you that's going to take over. So if you feed the good wolf, your life will be better. And so that's something I've always kind of tried to keep in mind to make my life better, and to make my life better so I can help other people like myself and other.
Wow, I had never heard that. That's a really neat way of looking at it, though. That's helpful. Awesome. Um, yeah, well, actually, I do have one more question. As far as, like affecting your mental health, do you find, um, your experience with activism, do you feel that your efforts were well worth it? The toll it takes?
It takes a toll, but because of the experiences I've been through in the last 7 years, I have learned to use what I've learned to go along with that. Like I sometimes, because as you know from in class, I'm very passionate about what's happening in Gaza. and that there are some days where I have to take a day or two off, where I don't watch the news, I don't read things online, because I just need to take care of me. And that's something that I related to the Ben and Oliver that came up to my vigil today, that I related to them, is to make sure that they are taking care of themselves. You know, if you need to take that day, don't feel bad about it, because if you need to do that, that has to be your most important thing, because you're not going to be effective if you aren't taking care of yourself. Mental health is something that is often overlooked by people, and I know I did for 55 years. And you need to make sure that you're well. Check in with yourself, and the hardest thing that I learned is to be good to yourself.
Yeah, that's very good advice. Very, very good advice.
Not always easy to practice, but
no, it's not. And yeah, I think everybody's still working on it, but yeah,
I think sometimes we are harder on ourselves than we really have to be, and we have to learn, as I have been taught, to have self-compassion, and it's a very important lesson to learn in life, and makes your life more enjoyable. Take it from a stupid old man who learned the hard way.
Oh, that's awesome. And thank you so much for meeting with me today and your input. In addition to shedding light on mental health and activism, we should also acknowledge those making great strides in the field of mental health. These individuals are essentially mental health activists. Here is a link to learn more about 6 Black mental health activists who offer insight and support to the diverse communities they serve.